This is New Time on Silkway TV channel. We introduce you with the most visible news and important events that happen throughout this week in Kazakhstan and Central Asia. More details on politics, economy, social and cultural life with opinions from the most recognizable experts of Kazakhstan and the world. I'm Ainur Mangali and this is what you'll see today. Russian President Putin visited Kazakhstan. 2-hour-long negotiations tête-à-tête with President Tokayev included opinions predominantly on economy, trade and business cooperation. CSTO summit in Astana with participation of leaders of Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Tajikistan, Belarus and Russia. What was on the table of discussions? Oil heaven. Kazakhstan plans to increase its oil exports. How is the strategic energy sector developing in the biggest Central Asian economy? And let's start from the official agenda. Kazakhstan and Russia have agreed to increase their mutual trade to $30 billion. This was announced during the state visit of the President of Russia to Kazakhstan this week. Kassym-Jomart Tokayev and Vladimir Putin discussed a wide range of bilateral cooperation in political, economic and humanitarian spheres. More details in the following report.
The President of Russia arrived in Kazakhstan's capital with an impressive delegation, reflecting the high status of the visit, a state visit. The Russian President has arrived to Kazakhstan at the invitation of Kassym-Jomart Tokayev. Wasting no time, the two sides began addressing pressing issues in a narrow-format meeting.
Kazakhstan has been and remains a reliable strategic partner and ally of Russia during these very challenging times. Ahead of the visit, members of our governments worked together, discussing all the issues on the agenda.
President Tokayev noted that the current meeting would result in the adoption of 20 new agreements, which will give an additional boost to the development of cooperation. In turn, Vladimir Putin thanked Kassym-Jomart Tokayev for the welcome.
Russia remains one of Kazakhstan's largest trade and economic partners. Trade turnover is growing. Last year, it reached nearly $28.5 billion. Cumulative investments in Kazakhstan's economy have reached $13 billion. We greatly value the development of humanitarian ties through civil society, education, science and culture.
During the expanded format talks, the leaders of two countries spoke about strengthening their partnership. They discussed joint projects in energy, industry, agriculture and other sectors. Over 90 projects have already been implemented, with total investments exceeding $18 billion. An additional 48 projects are currently underway.
Our task is to ensure that this cooperation maintains its momentum, that trade between our countries continues to grow successfully, investment collaboration deepens, and contacts in the humanitarian and educational spheres develop along an upward trajectory.
Education is another important area of cooperation. Via video conference, the presidents inaugurated a branch of Kazakh National University in Omsk, Russia. This marks the first representation of Kazakh University in Russia. The branch is set to open its doors in September next year.
Today is, without exaggeration, a historic moment. For the first time in history, a branch of a Kazakh university will open on Russia territory. This marks a significant and progressive step in the development of our relations. We are elevating cooperation in higher education and science to a new level.
There are no issues between Kazakhstan and Russia, the leaders noted. President Tokayev stated that there are ambitious plans for the coming years. The leaders agreed to increase mutual trade to $30 billion. Over the past 2 years alone, Russian businesses have invested more than $4.5 billion in Kazakhstan's economy, while Kazakh investments in Russia have reached a record $8.5 billion.
We have many joint projects to implement, which I am confident will bring tangible benefits to both the citizens and businesses of our countries. This coming January marks 20 years since one of the foundational interstate agreements, the Treaty on the Kazakh-Russian state border, was signed. In 2025 we'll also commemorate significant anniversaries, the 18th anniversary of the end of World War II and the 70th anniversary of the Baikonur Cosmodrome.
Following the talks, Kassym-Jomart Tokayev and Vladimir Putin adopted a joint statement on deepening strategic partnership in the context of a new global order. Daurian Sagulov, New Time.
Relations between Kazakhstan and Russia are developing in multidimensional directions, including enhanced energy dialogue and inter-regional cooperation, said Dmitry Peskov, press secretary of the Russian president, in an exclusive interview to Silkway. Mr. Peskov also mentioned the willingness from both sides to invest into large-scale projects in different sectors of economy.
We have several tens of thousands of Russian companies operating in Kazakhstan's market. Joint ventures, joint major projects and energy dialogue has been established. Russian investors are investing in Kazakhstan's economy. Kazakh investors are investing in Russia's economy. This is extremely important, but what matters is that it creates a platform on the basis of which we look confidently into the future.
More exclusive details from the visit of Russian President Vladimir Putin to Kazakhstan you can watch right after a New Time program here on Silkway. Kazakhstan, the chair of the Collective Security Treaty Organization, has prioritized strengthening cooperation among its member states and improving the effectiveness of crisis response mechanisms, said President Tokayev at the latest session of the organization, which took place this week in Astana. According to him, particular focus has been placed on enhancing the CSTO's ability to tackle modern challenges such as terrorism, cyber attacks, transnational crime and the illegal drug trade. Notably, Kazakhstan has been chairing the CSTO this year. In the Kazakh capital, the head of state personally welcomed his counterparts from Belarus, Kyrgyzstan, Russia and Tajikistan. More details in the following report.
At the organization meeting, key topics included the creation of a new framework for equal and indivisible security in the region, cybersecurity and countering terrorism. The session began with a closed-door discussion. President Tokayev emphasized that the organization has become a crucial institution in maintaining stability across Eurasia and continues to prove its importance as a security guarantor for all its member states.
During the intersessional period, a number of significant documents were adopted. These documents address international cooperation in defense matters, as well as responses to current challenges and threats to collective security.
Negotiations in a closed format were followed by an expanded session focused on the results of Kazakhstan's chairmanship in the organization. President Tokayev reported that 2024 plans, including improving crisis response, strengthened efforts against terrorism, cyber attacks and illegal migration, were successfully completed. Kazakhstan hosted about 60 events and signed 2 key protocols on the status of the organization forces and the deployment of military contingents. Additionally, the program to strengthen the Tajik-Afghan border, which had been underway since 2013, was completed, and a new document was signed to reinforce the organization's southern borders.
The outcomes of the meeting reaffirmed our strong commitment to act together in preventing challenges and threats to collective security. During the discussion, we aligned our positions on current international issues. Our shared assessments of the current situation and vision for the future development of the CSTO have been reflected in the Collective Security Council declaration developed at the Kazakhstan's initiative.
At the end of the meeting, the head of state signed 14 documents, including the declaration of the Collective Security Council. Agreements will address some of the key issues as international information security and space cooperation. President Tokayev thanked his counterparts for their participation and officially handed over the chairmanship of the organization to Kyrgyzstan. Paljan Samigulina, New Time.
Meanwhile, answering the question of the Silkway, the Minister of Energy of Russia, Sergei Tsevilov, underlined that the ministries of 2 countries are on the same page of discussing cooperation in the energy sector. That will include the broad range of projects in oil and gas, transition of the natural gas through Kazakhstan, as well as electricity transmission.
С министром энергетики Казахстана мы сняли все вопросы, которые были спорны.
We have resolved all controversial issues with the Ministry of Energy of Kazakhstan, and we currently have no disagreements. Today, during the visit, the energy ministers from either side were not raised, no additional questions were asked, and there is complete mutual understanding. We're examining issues including the construction of hydroelectric power plants and electricity transmission.
Kazakhstan plans to export nearly 69 million tons of oil this year, according to Minister of Energy Almasadam Satkaliyev, who delivered the report to the government this week. Furthermore, he noted that starting in 2026, annual oil production is expected to exceed 100 million tons, driven by the implementation of major projects. Meanwhile, international analysts warn that Kazakhstan's ambitions could pose a significant challenge to OPEC Plus by 2025, as Astana is currently producing oil above the quotas set by the organization. How has Kazakhstan responded, and what is the current state of the country's oil industry? Find out in our next report.
Kazakhstan plans to invest approximately $21 billion in oil production at major fields by 2030, Minister of Energy Almasadam Satkaliyev announced this week. The country aims to produce over 100 million tons of oil annually starting in 2026. This ambitious target will be achieved primarily through the projects at Kazakhstan's three largest oil fields, Tengiz, Karachaganak and Kashagan, which currently account for 65% of the nation's oil output. According to the minister, this share is expected to increase over the next 5 years.
By 2030, oil production from three major projects will account for 70% of the country's total output, with capital investments amounting to $70 billion. Additionally, $5 billion will be allocated to geological exploration of promising fields over the next 5 years, bringing total investments to $21 billion by 2030.
Kazakhstan is set to produce over 88 million tons of oil this year, exporting 69 million tons, driven by Tengiz Future Growth project. Additionally, gas processing plants are under construction at the Kashagan and Karachaganak. However, some members of the Kazakh parliament warn that at the current extraction pace, the country's oil reserves may run out in 15 years, citing insufficient geological exploration.
The total oil reserves in Kazakhstan amount 4.3 billion tons, with 72% concentrated in Tengiz, Kashagan and Karachaganak. Over 33 years we have discovered only one new field in 2021. If the current slow pace of geological exploration and extraction continues, our hydrocarbon reserves could be depleted within the next 15 years.
Energy industry expert Abzal Narembetov emphasized that oil and gas are the cornerstone of Kazakhstan's economy, contributing 20% of its GDP. While he acknowledged the credibility of the MP's statement, he noted that it requires important clarification.
So what Deputy of Parliament has, what he says has some credibility, and what he's saying that like in 15 years the reserve of Kazakhstan will not finish actually. It will decrease. So the correct, maybe the way of claiming that point is that Kazakhstan reserve will diminish, deplete, if there won't be any significant exploration and the new oil field discovered, or the current, or there won't be any significant amount of investment in the existing fields.
At the same time, Kazakhstan is revising its oil export strategy. The country plans to boost transportation via the Baku-Tbilisi-Ceyhan pipeline. According to the Minister of Energy, annual exports in this direction could increase from 1.5 million tons to 20 million.
20 million tons would be like 25-30% of the export of Kazakhstan. But currently, the amount of the oil that can be transported via the Baku-Tbilisi-Ceyhan is restricted, because in Aktau port in Kazakhstan, the current amount they can fill the tankers in 1 year is like 5 to 6 million tons.
Kazakhstan's strategy to increase oil production has drawn global media attention. The expansion of the Tengiz field is expected to boost the country's output to over 2 million barrels per day. However, Bloomberg analysts suggest that this could lead to conflict with OPEC Plus members, potentially positioning Kazakhstan as an internal foe due to its opposition to imposed production quotas. In response to these concerns, Energy Minister Almasadam Satkaliyev met with OPEC officials in Saudi Arabia on November 27, reaffirming Kazakhstan's commitment to production cuts and adherence to quotas. The announced 2026 production strategy will align with the agreed frameworks. Daurin Isagulov, New Time.
The Middle Corridor, a land route that includes Central Asia, the Caucasus and Europe, is now one of the world's most crucial transport links. This year, the route demonstrated more than a double increase in cargo transported, according to the Trans-Caspian International Transport Route officials. Kazakhstan, which has played a leading role in increasing the route's importance, is also investing heavily in new infrastructure projects, as well as other countries like Azerbaijan, Georgia, Turkey and European Union. What does the Middle Corridor represent now, and what are the challenges for its improved implementation? Balzhan Semigulina will continue.
In 2022, the World Bank analyzed the Middle Corridor's potential, forecasting that by 2030, travel times between China and Europe would halve and freight volumes would triple to 11 million tons. The route connecting Kazakhstan's eastern border to the port of Aktau would then cross the Caspian Sea to Azerbaijan and transit through the South Caucasus and Black Sea to Europe. Despite optimism, the project faces logistical challenges, which the World Bank report is quick to note, whether digitalization or tariff policies. Overcoming this would be difficult but by no means insurmountable. The willingness of road participants to address these issues is certainly evidence enough of these facts. Worth to know that according to Kazakh Transport Minister Marat Karabayev, in the first 10 months of this year, cargo traffic along the corridor increased by 68%, reaching 3.8 million tons.
50% көлемінде арнайы тарифтік жеңілдіктер орнатылды.
It is worth noting that there has been 25-fold increase in container traffic from China, largely driven by the opening of a joint Kazakhstan-China terminal in Xi'an last year. Additionally, this year, as part of an agreement to develop the Middle Corridor, an agreement was reached with China to increase the number of container trains. Specifically, by 2029, the number of container trains is expected to rise from 400 to 3,000 per year.
The European Union is investing 300 billion euros in the long term, with plans to reach this amount by 2027 through both public and private investments, as discussed recently in Brussels with the partners of the project. During the meeting, it was noted that Kazakhstan's efforts to improve its transport infrastructure will allow for a short-term increase in capacity to 37 million tons towards China and 20 million tons towards Central Asia. However, there are a number of technical challenges, which is reflected in the dynamics of container transit along the Middle Corridor. After a period of rapid growth, container traffic dropped by more than a third in 2023. This decline is largely due to the ongoing shallowing of the Caspian sectors involved in the corridor. Nevertheless, by the end of this year, figures are already showing signs of recovery, as reported by the Secretary General of the International Association Trans-Caspian International Transport Route, Gaidar Abdikerimov.
We are in urgent need of expanding our capacity, especially in the Caspian Sea, because we lack a sufficient fleet, ships, and container carriers. The first phase requires around 6 billion euros. We need investments along the entire route, starting with this critical first phase. A key priority in this phase is funding for the construction of vessels, particularly containing carriers. This is our top priority right now, and without it, we risk losing a significant share of the cargo flow.
To speed up train crossings in the Caucasus, experts say not only new road connections are needed, but also an overhaul of the outdated electrification system along the Azerbaijan-Georgia line. To support this, Baku has pledged $100 million investment to increase connectivity with Tbilisi and Kars. Without this upgrade, the Middle Corridor could face delays as goods transit the South Caucasus. In this context, a key agreement was signed this week between Azerbaijan's port of Baku, Kazakhstan's KTZ, and China's Xi'an Free Trade Port. The agreement aimed for all three countries to benefit a constant increase in the volume of container trains sent via the Middle Corridor, reducing unloading time and transportation costs.
Соглашение, подписанное на полях COP20.
The Middle Corridor is undergoing historic changes, becoming a key strategic link for global trade. The agreement signed at COP29 highlights the corridor's potential to increase container traffic along the China-Europe route, reduce unloading times, lower transportation costs, and ensure efficient cargo handling. Achieving these goals requires balanced and coordinated efforts to ensure the development of all routes, and Azerbaijan remains firmly committed to these objectives.
Currently, freight transportation along the Middle Corridor takes 3 times longer compared to the northern route through Russia. Additionally, it is on par with sea routes in terms of time, but still more expensive. Experts assume that countries should invest in developing this route for regional deliveries, as further investments in shipping capacity in the Caspian Sea would benefit not only Middle Corridor partners, but also multiple other stakeholders. Marjan Samigulina, New Time.
And now to some other news. In Kazakhstan, the requirements for the protection of water bodies, primarily small lakes and rivers, have been expanded. From now on, domestic enterprises would be required to reuse water. These and other innovations aimed at the rational use of water in the country have been included in the draft water code, which was approved in the first reading by the Majlis, the lower house of the Kazakh parliament, earlier this week. According to the head of the ministry, the code takes into account international experience with a primary focus on protecting water resources from depletion and only then on economic needs. Notably, the notion of water security is being introduced for the first time. It encompasses the protection of the population and the economy from the risks of water scarcity and pollution of water bodies. To the end, the concept for the development of the water resources management system and the comprehensive water sector development plan have been approved this year.
The plans include the construction of 42 new reservoirs and the reconstruction of 37 existing ones. Additionally, about 14,500 kilometers of irrigation canals will be modernized. If all tasks are complete, up to 10 billion cubic meters of water will be additionally accumulated and saved by 2030. It is also planned to transfer the function of groundwater resources management from other authorized and local executive bodies to the ministry.
The year of Kazakhstan tourism in China concluded with an official ceremony at an international forum in Almaty. Over 300 representatives from the tourism industries of both countries gathered to review the year's achievements. Throughout the year, a series of business meetings, exhibitions, concerts and cultural presentations showcased Kazakhstan's heritage. These efforts resulted in over 200 cooperation agreements and a significant boost in tourism. In 10 months, 550,000 Chinese tourists visited Kazakhstan compared to 370,000 in all of 2023. The most popular destinations were Almaty and Beijing. 2024 was declared the year of Kazakhstan tourism in China during the official visit of President Kassym-Jomart Tokayev to this country. Next, 2025 will be celebrated as the year of China tourism in Kazakhstan.
The flow of tourists from China has increased by 50%. The number of travelers has exceeded 500,000. According to forecasts, tourism export revenue is projected to reach $500,000. We believe that this is undoubtedly the result of over 30 events held between the two countries during the year.
The National Museum of Kazakhstan showcased Silk Road relics at a virtual exhibition. The exhibits include ceramic items, ancient coins and the Golden Man. The project was implemented by the UNESCO Regional Office in Almaty. The exhibition also features replicas of artworks, information about architectural landmarks and UNESCO World Heritage Sites. Visitors can also explore archives from cultural institutions worldwide. The hall features a total of 60 items presenting the cultural heritage of various peoples from the national museums of Iran, the Kyrgyz Republic, Tajikistan, Turkmenistan, and Uzbekistan. That's it for today. All the main news about Kazakhstan and Central Asia you can find here. More special projects about our country you can also watch on Silkway TV channel. So stay tuned and see you next time.